Hey guys, Nate here with the Volunteer Tech Vlog on the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel. I am a student of audio and I am looking to collaborate online and learn from and help teach other students of audio. So hence the vlog here. And today is November 9th, 2015, and this will be a media report for an event that occurred, a wedding that occurred on November 7th, 2015. So I wanted to make sure I made a special video or a special media report in response to a wedding, because weddings are a little bit of a different beast than typical Sunday morning workflows or even other events that happen at the church. They're a little bit unique. So they're different beasts to manage and coordinate as an audio tech. Definitely a break from the Sunday morning normalcy that you get kind of into little habits and you get used to doing things a certain way, and then if you're not, if you don't work in the live sound world or events, rentals and staging world, it can be tough to make that leap because there's just different things to think about. And if you have some professional experience doing things like weddings and wedding ceremonies. I'm talking about ceremonies. I'm not even talking about reception. That's a whole nother topic that maybe a DJ might talk about. But so one of the big things I wanted to, so I got my notes here. I'm just going to go right down the line of things that occurred to me to make note of. An audio pep talk to all the talkers. So anybody who's going to be speaking, the officiant, maybe somebody from the bridal party, or one of the groomsmen, or a close friend of the family that's doing a reading. Usually it's somebody who's not in the actual wedding party, but somebody who is like a close friend of the couple that might do like a reading from the Bible, a scripture reading. And so we had Arthur, who was the officiant. So he had him laved up with a little wireless lapel right here. We had Emma, who was reading scripture from the pulpit, and we had Dave, who was also another pastor. I didn't realize he was also a pastor until after I gave him the pep talk. So he probably already knew what was going on, but always good to give a little audio pep talk. Let me get into what I mean by that. So Dave gave the charge to the couple. So what do I mean by audio pep talk? So I like to just have a little chat with who's ever up there, because I don't know if they've had public speaking experience. This might be their first time standing in front of a microphone in a crowded room, and that can be a weird experience. Do you remember your first time you got up in front of a crowd and stood behind a microphone and it was only you that was being heard through the system? If you've never done that before, it's a little bit of a bizarre experience. So I like to give a little pep talk just to let them know, like, hey, the best thing you can do is speak slowly, clearly, and I don't think I even said that. I think I just said project. But hindsight, I would say just take your time, speak slowly, speak clearly, enunciate, and project. So the sound guy's worst nightmares when somebody gets up there behind the pulpit mic and they're just like whispering. They're just doing like a little whisper, right? And you try to turn it up. There's only so much gain before feedback, right? So you never want to have feedback. Thankfully, no feedback during the ceremony. Made sure of that. So anyway, that's what I mean by a little pep talk. Just talk to the people that are going to be up there speaking into the microphone, and just remind them to project, speak loudly and clearly, and then the system is going to make them sound great if they do that, because what we're doing is reinforcing what they're doing. We don't want the system. We don't want to rely on the system, but we want the system to aid the natural vocals that are occurring. So we want to start with good natural vocals. So very important part. Let's see. So I started recording. So it was an 11 a.m. ceremony. I started the recording at about 10:45 with to get the prelude, because we had a beautiful prelude with piano and violin, and those two acoustic instruments. I cracked open the piano just not all the way open, because we wouldn't have been able to see the violinist, but I cracked open the piano just to the first stop there, so that the natural sound could pour out and it could fill the room. So we had a violin that was plenty loud enough. She was also mic'd up. She brought her own microphone, little crown condenser microphone. So I started the recording. I thought it sounded really good. The violinist brought her own microphone. Now I didn't get to do a sound check until the morning of. So this is one of the challenges that comes up. You try to do a sound check during the rehearsal and just make sure you know exactly what's going on the night before, but not all musicians always show up. I don't get why. I don't know how that's acceptable, but not all the musicians were there for the rehearsal. So it was like, sound check was 9 a.m. and at like 10, maybe 10 past 10, I started seeing the musicians show up, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking, a little stressful there, because you know, you don't really have time to set the mix, and you want everything to sound good, and you want it to be recorded well, and you need some time to get things together. So next thing, so started the recording, which is good to start that recording early, because wedding ceremonies are typically short, so you don't really have to worry. So you've got, in our setup, we've got 80 minutes going to we would just record right to a CD. And wedding ceremonies are typically a half hour, 35 minutes at the most. So it's good to start that to get the prelude. It's just a nice thing for the couple to have. Talked about the acoustic instruments filling the room, cracked open the piano. This is an interesting note. The pianist was also a piano tuner. So I looked down and I see him. He's actually got a little tool and he's tuning and hitting notes and, you know, doing some fine tuning stuff by ear. And I went up and went to go see what was going on up there, because that's not a typical thing. And he said, yeah, I'm a piano tuner. So he gave the piano a little, spruced it up a little bit before the ceremony. Let's see, so the wedding actually was kicked off by the two mothers that go up and light a candle up on the platform there, the stage. So that actually kicked off at 11:06, so they were like 6 minutes behind, but that was kind of like the cue to start the progression. That means everybody's in place and things are going to start to happen. So you want to look for the mothers that go up and light the candle, and then after that the prelude, the violinist and the pianist started playing different music at that point to cue other things to happen. So let's see, piano to organ transition. So this is an interesting one. So a lot of times during the rehearsal, and as a sound guy, it's not my call. It's not my call to kind of tell them what to do in terms of arrangements and songs and when somebody should be playing the piano and when somebody should be playing the organ. That's totally up to the bride and groom. That's their decision. But what I've seen happen a lot is they'll play one song on the piano, and then when the bride comes in, they would like the organ to be played. And if it's the same soloist that has to walk across from the piano to the organ, there's this kind of like weird long pause. And some people are cool with that. But in this case, hindsight being 2020, we had a violinist up there. I would have had the violinist just kind of continue Pachelbel's canon, or whatever they were playing at the time, and just kind of do a little outro while the pianist was switching over to sit behind the organ. That's probably one thing I would have mentioned as a sound person. Next time I do a wedding, I'm going to be thinking about these transitions a little bit more and making sure the musicians. But if the musicians aren't there for rehearsal, it's kind of hard to know because you're not quite sure exactly how it's all going to go down. So anyway, weddings are a different beast, but sound guy can only do so much. Oh, this is the other big thing. Somebody forgot to silence their cell phone, and during the vows there was a ringtone. I think it was like Jay-Z and Alicia Keys doing the New York song Empire State of Mind. So it's got me thinking, like, maybe we should have some sort of like standard wedding pre-roll where we've got like a reminder on screen that says, please silence your cell phones, kind of like the movie theaters had. There was also, let me pause this and pick it up because there's a couple things I want to mention. Hang on a second. Okay, I am back. So so I was just mentioning standard wedding pre-roll. This couple originally had like a custom graphic to put up on the screens in the house, just as a static image to kind of complement their wedding theme and everything, and just so there weren't just blank screens there. But at the last minute, they opted to not have anything up there and just have the screens not be part of it. So that was their choice. But what I'm thinking is, it might be a good idea to come up with a standard wedding pre-roll. What I mean by that is, in ProPresenter, we've got this ability to play a slideshow that just infinite loops. It just goes over and over and over, and we put ministry opportunities up there. So for Sunday morning, we've got what we call the pre-roll, and it's just current announcements, things that are happening, and it's almost like you're using the displays as like a signage application while people are coming in, and maybe like the half hour leading up to when the service starts. And so I'm thinking, what if we had a wedding one where it said, something, just maybe one or two slides, and it would be, from 10:45 until 10:55, and then they'd go off. Something like that. Just please remember to silence your cell phones. Something as basic as that. Just it might help a little bit. It might avoid some of that, some of those interruptions that can happen. Of course, if people come in late and sit in the back and their cell phone goes off, it's not going to help that. But something to think about. I'm trying to think of like what other types of important things. Like you could even have like maybe directions to where the reception is up there, or this particular couple had a code. They had if you took pictures on your cell phone, you could upload to this website with a certain code attached to it, and then they'd get to see all the different pictures that guests took throughout the ceremony and wedding and reception. I know a lot of couples probably don't want their guests taking photos at all because they want the pros to take the photos, but people are going to take photos no matter what, right? So at least if they do take photos, they can upload using this code. So having the code be a slide up there, that's not a standard thing. That's more of a custom thing. So I guess it depends on our media support and how we want to do it. Maybe we don't even want to offer something like that because it adds another level of complexity. No, something to think about. The last thing I want to mention, well, not the last, I got two more things here. So the organ, something happened with the organ. I don't know what. There was confusion after the couple was announced, and the officiant said, "Now you may kiss your bride," and they announced the couple. Usually that's like everybody claps, and then the organ starts up, dun, 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 doing this fanfare thing, and plays the reception, the march as they go out of the ceremony there, out of the room. And for whatever reason, the organist was trying to play, and nothing was coming up, and he looked kind of confused and wasn't sure exactly what was going on. And the organ is a whole separate system, so as the sound person, I really don't have any experience with the organ other than I know that there's a key to get into it. You turn it on and off, and it has volume pedals, and it's got its own system apart from the house system, but it is a house organ. So I'm not sure exactly what went wrong there. It sounded like what I heard from the wedding coordinator is that the organ timed out, and it had some sort of like, it went into standby mode, or like automatically shut off after a certain amount of time. So so he started with the organ, went over to piano, had the whole reception, came back to the organ, and apparently it wasn't on anymore, and he had to turn it off and turn it back on again. That was the report I heard from the wedding coordinator. Then the next day, I happened to talk to, or later that day, a guy that plays the organ at our church regularly, and he says, "Oh, that shouldn't happen, because the organ he's gotten yelled at before because he's left it on for like a week at a time." And, he left it on one week and then came back a week later and it was still on. So the whole timing kind of like goes against the fact that it can time out. So, to be honest with you, I don't know what the situation was. I'm not sure if maybe his foot was on the volume pedal and he didn't realize it and he had turned the volume all the way down, and then don't know what happened. But anyway, there was a little bit of confusion there. And, there were a couple hints that he made. He said, I think in passing, he said, "Wow, this is really complex meat machine," or something like that. And I was just like, I don't know, it's an organ, it's got stops and everything. But, maybe, so big takeaway here, I need to understand how the organ works a little better so I can chime in and I can guide the discussions. And, I don't know if there's a whole lot I could have done in that specific situation, but at least if you know, if I understand better how it works, I can go over that with somebody who's maybe making comments like, oh geez, this is a complex machine, and maybe that's kind of like a subtle way of dropping a hint that like, hey, do you know how this thing works? I'm not quite sure, because I didn't really pick up on that during the rehearsal, but now I'll definitely be picking up on that a little bit more. So anyway, that is those are my thoughts, those are my initial reactions to doing sound at the wedding. Oh, I got one more really important thing I just thought of. I'm glad I kept this rolling as I'm driving here, and I'll just stitch these two clips together. One other really important thing was the vows. So during the rehearsal, we didn't really go over exactly what was going to happen with the vows. It was just kind of like, okay, now we do the vows, and next thing, and then now you hand the flowers to her, and then she's going to do this, the rehearsal is very much focused on where people need to be at certain moments in time, and I didn't realize that the couples had personal vows that they were going to be exchanging. And a lot of times, and this happens a lot with wedding ceremonies from what I've seen, is that the bride and the groom are not mic'd up. So nobody hears these vows. They're pouring out their hearts, and you can't really hear it. Now sometimes the pastor will do like a responsive reading, almost like that thing, kind of like repeat after me. And so the pastor says, or the officiant says, you know, I so-and-so take you, and then they repeat, I so-and-so take you to be my blah 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 blah, and you can, the congregation knows what's being said because they're hearing the officiant who's got a lab and he's mic'd up. But if people are doing personal vows and the bride and groom are not mic'd up, there's a problem there, because you know, you can't really hear what's happening. So anyway, the big idea is for next time we do a wedding, maybe give the officiant, because you don't want to have the bride and groom mic'd up. I mean, you could mic them up with wireless, but do you really want to? I mean, the bride's got the wedding dress on. Do you really want to try to like hide a wireless body pack on a wedding dress? It's not really my skill set to try to do that, and it's pretty tough to coordinate that with like the bridesmaids and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure people do it, but that's a challenge in and of itself. So, simpler solution, instead of micing up the bride and groom, because you're probably not going to be able to get time with them before the wedding because of the way things unfold the day of. What I'm thinking is we give the officiant a handheld mic that he either keeps in his back pocket or somewhere stashed, you know, in a little drawer or something up there. And when the vows happen, the officiant who's mic'd up now takes this wireless handheld and just does one of these and just kind of like holds it. I think that might be the way to go. And the only other thing I can think of is having like one of those like mechanical retractable microphones that kind of comes out of the floor, like you see in like the award shows, like the Grammys, the Emmys and all that, where somebody goes up in these award shows and this microphone just goes, comes right out of the bottom of the stage, and then when it's no longer needed, it kind of goes back down into a trap door. That would be cool, but that'd be pretty expensive for an event that happens to support maybe an event that happens a couple times a year. The cost associated with that is not really justified. So yeah, I'm thinking wireless handheld for vows. So anyway, this is a mental note to myself in the future to remember all these things. And this is a pretty long one, but my name's Nate with the Volunteer Tech Vlog. I'll see you in the next video.